Welcome, Kartik, to the Our Ability podcast.
Yeah, thanks so much. Excited to be here.
We should have done this from day one, and I don't know why. So here we go. Um,
Yeah.
Tell me, who is Kartik? Who are you?
Well, there's a version of me, there's a current version of me, someone who's really excited about generative AI and multimodal AI and is an accessibility innovator. I like trying to explore how we can leverage the latest in AI to improve the lives of people with disabilities, to think about more delightful experiences. But I think going back a little bit, so I was born blind in Delhi, and I think a lot of what I do right now is shaped by my own personal experiences growing up there, where there were attitudinal barriers and challenges when trying to access higher education. Later, there were challenges, accessibility challenges, when none of my textbooks were available in accessible formats, and I basically had to spend hours typing those every single day. And later, when I went to Stanford to study computer science, I think that a lot of that came back to me like, how can you leverage the technology and the latest in AI before AI was a buzzword, before AI was really a thing, to really try and solve for a lot of the problems and challenges that I faced growing up. Right. So that's kind of where my accessibility journey started with a couple of projects, nonprofit startups, things like that I did in, in school. And then, of course, in corporate, across a variety of roles, right, from software to AI to products, really kind of seeing it all in terms of how we can advance AI to really have an impact on people with disabilities. And of course, the same in our ability as well in trying to see how we can really think about employment and, more generally digital access, independence, and autonomy for people with disabilities using technology. So I would say that's kind of who I am.
And your time at Stanford, how did that shape who you are now?
Yeah, I think Stanford was really good in really helping me think through where I want to be and how I want to lead my life. I think whenever you're in the valley, a lot of that entrepreneurship bug kind of gets you for sure. And so that's kind of exactly what happened to me as well. So I knew for a very long time that I really wanted to do something of my own and really kind of innovate, at its core, right? So that's sort of how a lot of the things happen with me in life, right? In terms of like, thinking about how we can develop these solutions, how we can scale these solutions, how we can, and whether, I mean, in some ways, even at Microsoft, right? Like thinking about how we could do that within an organization as well, but really owning that product or really owning projects end to end is something that I enjoy doing. So I think Stanford and Silicon Valley in general has been very instrumental in, giving me that hacker mentality and their innovator mentality to just go and like see what we can do.
The disability community likes to say a lot that disability doesn't define me, but it's part of me. I guess I've got mixed opinions on that, but it- you know, something that you're saying is resonating with me and always has resonated, and that is personal experience. Personal experience, especially personal experience from somebody with a physical disability, whichever it is, whatever it is, you've had to adapt to life around you, but then you want to take that experience into things you build and things you do. How
Mhm.
important has that been for you?
That has been extremely important. And I think I firmly believe that unless you've actually experienced the problems or are in close proximity to those who have, it doesn't really work. I've had so many innovators come to me to get feedback on their products, and they have the best of intentions. But if you do not really understand how things work and how people with disabilities lead their lives and really what the problems are, I mean, that's true for any problem for that matter, but particularly true for problems in the disability and accessibility space. So I think personally for me, it has been absolutely important. And that is really what continues to drive me. Now, I will say that there's this other aspect of it though, which is you can't let's just, just have your experiences shape your products. That's also sort of a slippery slope. And I've done that in the past. And it was really, really, I think I learned it the hard way. And so really thinking about that intersectionality as as it comes in, people with disabilities from diverse socioeconomic backgrounds, from diverse cultures, from even just diverse lived experiences is important. I do not represent blind people. I just happen to be one of the hundreds of thousands and millions of blind people around the world, and I think that is really important for an innovator to realize as well, and keep that in consideration as they develop.
Yeah, I've said that too. I mean, I'm one person with a physical disability. I do
Mhm.
not speak for the disability community. I hope that we collectively bring people together, but I only know my experience of no arms and no legs. I don't know your experience, and
Yeah,
I wouldn't profess to. Uh,
yeah,
but
exactly,
it is important to say that, and then listen to what other people's challenges and successes are, because
absolutely.
that's where we can go.
Mhm.
Um, One nice thing, or not so nice thing, is that unemployment is somewhat, and underemployment is somewhat universal for people with disabilities around the world, hence why what we're doing with our jobs portal and our job recommendation engine. And so whether it's my experience or your experience, it does seem to be growing that there's underemployment for our community, and there's still a need for what we do in technology. It does take me back to the when we met, when we initially talked, when you were solely at Microsoft and we were talking about data sets and building something. We were talking about machine learning, and now we're talking about Gen AI.
Mhm.
And the terms will change again. Tell me, in your opinion, and in layman's terms, what is Gen AI and how are we using it for our purposes?
Yeah, and I think Gen AI has evolved quite a bit, but really what this is, these are really large language models, and there are different kinds of models, but I'm gonna, focus this on LLMs because that is, those are usually what people use. And so these are huge models that have been trained on massive amounts of data. We're talking about pretty much everything on the internet. So really huge models trained on a lot of data, a lot of parameters. Right. So, and these are essentially probabilistic models, but because they have been trained on so much data, they're actually general purpose models that are able to provide, a lot of value. And are suited for all kinds of tasks, right? From, tasks involving just retrieval to having personalized bots that can provide suggestions and advice and all kinds of things. But what's really happening now is also multimodal models and thinking through how these models can speak and how they can process images and videos and all of that. But then also thinking about how these are actually able to now complete tasks and take actions on behalf of the user and all the integrations that come with them and how these are actually able to talk amongst themselves. These agents are able to talk amongst themselves. So really where we're at right now are these models that are highly personalized. These are models that are highly general purpose and are able to assist in all kinds of tasks, both in terms of Q&A, but also now end-to-end task completion, which is really exciting. So of course, back from, this is of course a big change from when you and I started developing, which was conventional AI. And, a lot of that relied on specific data sets, smaller data, and, much smaller models and, that kind of stuff. So a lot has changed since, and exciting times for sure. And just in terms of the capabilities, and how powerful some of these models are.
So a little audio description here. Kartik is sitting in his home office with a white background behind him and a nice fancy beard on his face. I am with a headset on. I am sitting in my
Yeah.
home office in my Jobsability t-shirt in sweltering 90-degree heat and
Oh,
with a desk and bookcase behind me and a window behind me, hoping there's a breath of air. So there's a little audio description. Um, Getting back to what we're talking about, it has changed quite a bit. And so I want to talk about what you've built for Jobsability and the job recommendation engine. What is really your most important element in this as you built it and as you think about it?
mhm. I think it goes back to actual stories and actual data of people with disabilities, but also really thinking through um, job taxonomies, combining that with our experiences. And by our, I just don't mean like the two of us, right? I mean, all the experiences we've had in the field, and really kind of create this model that goes beyond just like resume level stuff, right? And that really captures the nuances of who this person is. To your first question about me, right? Who is Karthik? And that's exactly what we're trying to do with candidates as well. Who is this candidate? What are their aspirations? What are their limitations? What are their preferences? And it's also about thinking through if there are any linkages in their experience. And sometimes those may not be very obvious. Transferable skills may not be very obvious, but how are we able to probe and ask questions and really try and uncover something that is powerful, right? Like that's kind of really what this is about, right? So the questions that we have that try and go deeper, the questions that we have around what kind of accommodations do they need, or, what are their functional limitations, if any, and what are their preferences? All of those then coming together and really painting a picture of the candidate that is holistic and highly personalized, going beyond what any resume could ever capture. I think that's really important. And then what we're able to do is really kind of take all of that and provide like these pathways. Not every single job that we recommend the candidate has to be absolutely ready, but they could be, right? Because there are transferable skills that they had perhaps in their prior experience that might work really well for this position. So those kinds of things, and that semantic level, that deep level of understanding is something that I think is really important. And even though large language models are able to do a lot, that is the kind of stuff for which even today custom solutions are the way to go, right? Because these models, again, are trained on massive amounts of data. And the unfortunate reality is majority of this data is biased or is ableist or does not capture the lived experiences of people with disabilities and the unique circumstances or considerations that one should have when thinking of people with disabilities and employment. So that is again still something that isn't a part of a lot of these general purpose models, which is why we still need custom applications like this.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's the very first question that Wendy asked me back 2018, 2019, or whatever it is.
Mhm,
How do we make sure that the data isn't biased against people with disabilities? And it
mhm,
it is a question that I don't know about you, but I think about it every day because
mhm.
we have to be part of this equation for us to matter. And
Yeah.
otherwise people can go in chat GPT and do whatever they want, right? But
Mhm.
it's not going to take into account what we've learned and built into the learning through the job recommendation engine.
I'll give you one example. I was interacting with ChatGPT the other day and I said, "Hey, how does a blind person become a software engineer?" And it starts the answer is, "I'm so sorry you're blind." I'm like, "Are you serious?" I'm not sorry that I'm blind. I don't know why you're sorry that I'm blind.
Ableism. Woo,
Ableism.
woo, woo.
Fair.
Ableism.
Fair. So again, and of course, none of this deliberate, right? I mean, I'm sure that a lot of these model providers don't do it deliberately. No one does it deliberately.
Right.
It's just a data problem. The other issue is everyone's using in these co-pilots and a lot of these AI agents for coding. And 96% of the web is inaccessible. 96% of the code online is inaccessible. And so, of course, majority of that training data is inaccessible, and the code that it outputs is inaccessible, which is a big issue because a lot of the progress that we made in the past 3 decades, we actually run the risk of, losing or reversing a lot of that progress. And so, yeah, AI is exciting. A lot of things that I just wasn't able to do, like even 6 months ago, I'm able to do now, which is amazing. But at the same time, we have to think about the unintended consequences as well, and how do we mitigate a lot of those risks. That's really important for us to think about
That's a
as
great
well.
point. I mean, if we let the chat GPTs of the world and the copilots of the world sort of take over and we're not part of the equation, then we will be
Mhm.
left behind. And the whole point of what we're doing is to not be left behind.
Yeah.
And maybe politically, some people in the world want us to be left behind, but we certainly don't. And other people with disabilities certainly don't as well. So that's a big part of why I get up in the morning, and I assume you do as well.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
What do you want to build? based on what we've done, what do you want to build going forward? And it's a leading question, um, but you and I talk offline about a lot of things, but what gets you excited about what we could build?
Yeah, when I think about assistive technology all up, and I compare that to the advancements in computing and AI more generally, I think there's a big disconnect. We haven't made a lot of progress in assistive technology over the past 3 decades, and certainly nowhere near the advancements in mainstream computing and software. My screen reader is pretty much the same as the one in 2001 when I started to use it, which is rather unfortunate.
Oh,
And when I think about what AI and multimodal AI, really provides us the opportunity to do, is really reimagine interaction for people with disabilities with computing devices. Today, in some ways, a lot of us are at the mercy of developers. And again, I mean, I'm a developer. I know, I mean, I talk to developers every day. No one deliberately does it, but it is what it is. Things get deprioritized. And especially now, because the world is moving at a crazy speed, if you don't, then you're just going to lose out. That is just how fast AI is going right now, and AI innovation is going right now, right? So I think we really have to rethink how how we define accessibility, how people with disabilities interact. Are we still going to rely on the information that developers expose that then is leveraged by these screen readers and other assistive technology? And if, by the way, you don't have that information, then hard luck. I mean, that's not 2025. We're
right.
talking about self-driving autonomous cars and everything else, right? And so there has to be a better way. Now, fortunately, I do think that a lot of the advancements in agentic AI can provide that answer, where you really kind of think about tasks and not about how to complete those tasks, right? And where you do not interact with UI, but instead you think about what is it that you actually want to do, and let the computer try and figure out and interact with any inaccessible UI on your behalf, which the computer totally is capable to do, because computer is not relying on semantics, right? Computer is actually relying on visual pixel level information, which again is totally accessible to a lot of these agents, right? So I do think that that's the future for everyone, but certainly that should be the future for people with disabilities. And we should actually, in some ways, inform that experience, that mainstream experience, which we're not doing at the moment. If you think about majority of the agentic tools that are coming about right now in the market, a lot of that computer use tools that are coming about in the market, a lot of them aren't accessible. A lot of them aren't thinking about providing feedback to people with disabilities. And so I think we have an opportunity there to influence, but also an opportunity there to innovate and develop, custom solutions for our community as well that can be extremely powerful.
So if you're a funder out there, or a venture capitalist out there, and you're listening to us, there's unlimited funds. There is a lot that we could do, and that is we have these conversations just like we just did offline all the time. Unfortunately, disability has typically been underfunded, and that's no surprise to anybody that's listening to this at all. But that's okay. We'll get there in time if we keep talking about what we need to talk about, which is an accessible and equal world as much as possibly can be. And it does begin and end with us being part of the equation. And again, not Kartik or John, but us, people with disabilities, as part of the equation.
Yeah, absolutely.
When we first met and we started the AI for Good project, and we started uh doing the job matching, there were other disability companies. I don't know if I necessarily want to mention them or not, but other disability companies sort of doing what we were trying to do, and have changed and tweaked what they're doing, and maybe not doing exactly what they're doing. But it does make me think that two things. One, somehow we're kind of still here, which is great, and people still come to our website, which is great. Again, last month there were 15,000 people per month coming to our website. But two, there are going to be changes in the business universe, and there'll be mergers and acquisitions. What needs to happen specifically in the disability space with that? Do we all need to come together? Do we need more of us? What, in your opinion, what needs to happen?
I do think that there needs to be more collaboration. One thing that I'm actually very pleasantly surprised, but also very excited about, is just the level of open source development that is happening right now in the AI space. And we're talking about companies like Meta, for example, really kind of taking the lead, right? Which is um, honestly surprising, right? That a Fortune 500 or 100 company is going to basically say, well, I'm going to open source my models.
Right,
A lot of them are actually doing that, I'm seeing more and more VCs sort of be okay with the idea of funding open source solutions. But at its core, I mean, that's really about collaboration. And I do think that if a lot of these disability startups and disability tech startups come together, there's a lot that we can do together. And that's going to be exciting because there's so much to solve. And each of these companies have their own strength, right? So, for example, there might be parts of technology that we are particularly good at. There might be others that another company might be really good at. And what happens when we actually start to collaborate and work together and really try an end-to-end provide an end-to-end solution to a user that really ultimately helps them become employable, right? Because that end goal and impact is the only thing that matters. I mean, I can develop the best technology in the world. If someone's not going to get a job because of that, well, great. The technology was fancy, but that's it, right? And stop there. It
yeah,
doesn't help anyone. And I don't think that that's actually happening right now. I think a lot of us are developing in silos, and a lot of us are not still thinking about the ultimate goal, right? There's a tech piece to it, but and there might be a product piece to it, there might be a PR piece to it, there might be all of that. But at the end of the day, are we really benefiting the people who we really want to benefit? And so I think really being mindful of that, and in some ways self-critical, and kind of really thinking about it all the time, and then seeing what we can do and how we can bring these pieces together, while of course still being competitive. I'm not suggesting that we basically just go and think of this from a charity lens, right? I mean, I think you and I are obviously totally against that. I don't want to do that.
right.
Right. I want this to be an investable business. I want to make a lot of money. I'm sure you want to make a lot of money. All of that is fine, right? I mean, this has to be profitable, but it's not at the cost of impact. And that's exactly something that I think is really, really important, but also missing in some sense.
Yeah, I just got off a phone call with a collaboration. It was the same thing. I want people to use our technology, and I think sometimes collaborators are surprised when I say that. No, we can collaborate on the technology, and we can figure out revenue sharing, and we can figure out price points, and we can do that because we're all relatively intelligent people. But I don't want to hoard it for just myself if it can help other people find
Mm,
employment. The only way
exactly.
we're going to grow our economy is if we add more people and add them to a place that they're valuable to that company and will be long lasting and successful. And so I want people to use what we built. And I think it
Totally.
surprises some when I say that.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
What's the future of AI? Where are we going, Karthik? Not us,
Um,
our ability. Where's the
The
technology
world,
going?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I think it's exciting. Again, I am always optimistic, but cautiously optimistic, right? I think we do need to think about responsible AI. We do need to think about the safeguards that we're going to put in place to ensure that it's deployed, but it's also adopted the right way. And that's really important, the part about adoption, because you can't take out, as you said, the human out of the equation, right? Ultimately, humans have to use it. There's so much conversation about like, oh, this world where one agent communicates to the other, and then another communicates to the third, and then humans are not anywhere in the equation. And we're like, well, who are we developing all of this for?
right.
Right. So I think that is important. We need to keep that in mind. But otherwise, I think the rate at which we're going and the potential is immense, especially for people with disabilities. And so very excited, and very excited to also think through how we continuously evaluate it, to ensure that it's actually working for us and doing all the right things, and how do we ensure that we have certain harm mitigation techniques and principles and best practices that we're able to share with the rest of the world as well, to ensure that we can watch out collectively to ensure that we in some ways do not repeat what we did in the early 2000s, or the 2000s with the web, right? I mean, we do not want to see 96% of AI models being ableist,
Yes.
unlike just like inaccessible web, right? So we really do need to watch out for that.
So I'm gonna have to test that with ChatGPT. I'm a quad A looking for. I'm so sorry, John. Um, Kartik Sawhney, co-owner of Our Ability, technologist, intelligent, vibrant. Thank you for your time. I greatly appreciate it
Thanks
because
for having
it's
me. Yeah.
something that we should have done a long time ago, and we'll do this again. I do think there's a lot of value in our clients and the people that trust us on the employment side to hear from both of us in
Sure.
this way. And so I thank you for doing it, and we'll do it again soon.
Sounds good. Awesome. Thank you.